global initiative. And we are very excited to present the partners behind a unique public-private partnership that was announced by President Clinton this morning. It's one of nearly 300 commitments, new commitments that were made this year that at the end of the day will total approximately $6 billion and help millions of people around the world. I'd like to introduce Tom Williams. He's the Director of External Relations for Duke Energy.
Thanks so much. I appreciate folks coming, and I understand we have Demi Moore following us, so maybe this room might be a little more full later on, but I really appreciate y'all coming to hear from us. We have Jim Rogers, CEO of Duke Energy, on the far left. Next to Jim is Gianna Manus. She's our Chief Customer Officer. Obviously John Chambers, who just finished up in the panel upstairs, is there as well. We have Mayor Anthony Fox from Charlotte, a rising star in the Democratic Party who has come up with us to attend the series of events and is a key participant in this initiative. And Michael Smith, who's with Charlotte Center City Partners. Michael's job is to help promote the Center City District in Charlotte within the I-277 loop. He's been a key participant in conceiving this project and will help sell it to the other businesses within the 277 loop. One of the key bits of information that we're excited about is by announcing this today, we actually already have 12 million square feet ready to go and participate in this, and that leaves another 3 to 5 million square feet that we'll be going after. So almost the entire center city of Charlotte is participating from the outset. So we'll have each person give some opening comments for a few minutes, then open it up for Q&A. Jim?
I'm trying to decide whether to walk up here.
Yes.
I love the idea of being the warm-up act for Demi Moore. I don't get to do that very often. But let me start out by saying that I'm really delighted to be with everyone here. And what makes this project special and makes it a first-of-a-kind project is that this is a public-private combination. You've got a technology provider. You've got a utility company that provides electricity and has an existing relationship with the customers. You have the mayor of Charlotte. You have the head of City Center Partners, which is the major corporations, all coming together to really do something rather unique. It's to take a city with each of its commercial buildings and to, in a concerted effort, really reduce the usage of electricity within each building, understand the algorithms of usage within each building, make people aware. We're going to put screens in so everybody can see how they're doing within the building. There might be a little competition between the different buildings in the city, and we all know that helps people do the right thing in terms if they know they're in a competition. The other thing is, and to me the most exciting part of this, is that over time we're going to use technology to link these buildings together so there is this communication that occurs that really allows us to modify and using this technology, reduce usage in the area. So we are targeting a 20% reduction in the use of electricity in downtown Charlotte, and I think that has a significant reduction in our carbon footprint. But most importantly, as we look to a future where the price of electricity is actually going to rise, we're putting control in the hands of our major customers, and we're making our city, at the end of the day, one of the most energy efficient in the world. And from our company's perspective, our aspiration in the 21st century is to not just be a kilowatt hour provider, but our aspiration is to make our communities the most energy efficient in the world. And with this project that we have here, we believe it's replicable in the United States in every city and replicable in every city around the world at the end of the day. So we're excited about it and really delighted that y'all are here today to really talk to us about it. Thank you very much. John?
We have the opportunity to get to see what is going on in every country, every city around the world. And there's a lot of information about what we can do on climate control, what we can do on energy efficiency, and concerns about can you really get the effectiveness or not, and what are the implications on jobs. Envision Charlotte will be the first major move where you bring together the leading utility company, the government leadership, the combination of the community coming together with a group that will take leadership for pulling this whole plan together, the leading technology company, and you can suddenly say not only can we reduce the emission implications and the cost of electricity by 20% for the community, we can completely transform a city. I think if we do this in Charlotte first, and we need to find another city in North America, probably 2 in China or Asia, and probably 2 in Europe, then when the government leaders, and I talk to most of them, ask you the questions and concerns they always have, if we move on these issues in terms of helping the environment, is it really going to be doable? Can you get the efficiencies people are talking about, and what are the job implications? So in a community that in many ways is one of the top energy centers in terms of energy workers with 13,000 people, and one of the top financial communities with Bank of America and Wachovia and Wells Fargo, you suddenly see what would be a model for the rest of the nation and the rest of the world. We're honored to be a part there. Each commitment, Jim, you and I have made at Clinton Global Initiative, we've actually overachieved. So, Michael, Mayor Fox, I don't want to put too much pressure on us, but I'd like to see us beat this one as well. So I think it will be a model for the country, and then I think it will be a model for the world. And we're all in, Jim.
One of the things that makes our country great is that when we face traumatic or dramatic obstacles, we find a way to reinvent ourselves. One of the great national missions right now is figuring out a way to increase our optimization of our energy, reducing our carbon footprint, and getting people back to work. Part of that national mission is being lived out through this effort, and I'm very pleased to have partners in our private sector like Jim Rogers and John Chambers who are stepping up to help Charlotte show the world what we can do to create a more sustainable commercial sector. Charlotte, the city of Charlotte, is going to be a partner in this effort. In fact, we are going to be creating more sustainability within our own governmental buildings. And so we're not just helping enable this in the commercial sector, we're actually going to practice a little bit of what we preach. This effort would not be possible without government and the private sector working together. That is how this country was built. That's how the city of Charlotte was built. That's how we're going to get ourselves back on our feet as a nation. And so it's great to be here today, and I look forward to your questions. Mike.
This is such a bold and exciting initiative, and it is consistent with the character of the city of Charlotte to take something like this on. We've had 3 decades of incredible corporate leadership and government leadership, and it's been those two working together that have made so much possible. We're a city of about 1.8 million people. Our downtown is incredibly compact, and we think it offers so many pieces of sustainability. With bicycle access, it's the center of our transit hub, great walkability, lots of LEED certified buildings, and a lot of mixed use buildings as well. But we felt like there was a missing component to achieving true sustainability, and it was what defines downtowns, and that's what makes this so replicable across the world, is that the thing that we were not addressing was the buildings. So the combination of using the buildings and this great corporate environment that works so well with the public sector gives Charlotte an opportunity to do something extraordinary. And we are excited about the partnership. Duke Energy is an incredible leader in Charlotte, and being able to team them with our major employers is what kind of sets this free and creates this opportunity.
Okay, let's have some questions and have the microphone, speaking to the mic as you ask your question. And
Thank you. I'm Karen Rubin with News and Photo Features. So I have lots of questions, but one of them is, you said that it's not going to cost the tenants and so forth any money, but there must be some capital investment. So the question is, how much is this costing? Who's paying? Is there any of the Recovery Act money for retrofitting going to it? And also, as a Duke Energy company, you know, other energy companies say, oh, but our share, you know, you're reducing energy consumption, that's where we make our money, so how you tell your shareholders, well, this is a good idea for you too?
Okay, why don't we have Gianna come up and address that? Or with the mic there.
Yeah, let me start, and Gianna can add to it. I think the bottom line is that we're prepared to put over $5 million into making this happen. We will have a piece of that. Cisco is going to contribute part of that with respect to making it happen. But the reason that we're doing it is we've worked hard in the state of North Carolina to change the regulatory paradigm so that we make money investing in energy efficiency in the same way we make money investing in new generation. So at the end of the day, I believe across the country, you're going to have to change the regulatory paradigm that incents companies like us to invest in energy efficiency within the homes of our customers as well as the businesses, and this is an example of that going forward.
I also believe, I think in your package you might have a little more information on this, but to Jim's point, we do have a mechanism in the state of North Carolina that encourages Duke Energy to encourage energy efficiency, and a mechanism for some of that recovery. So we will be filing portions of this program, the energy efficiency components, with the North Carolina Utilities Commission. Now, we have met with the collaborative people that we work with in advance of these type of initiatives in North Carolina, and they've been very positive and favorable about this initiative because they recognize that really the benefits accrue to not only Duke Energy in terms of our recovery mechanism, but to the community. And being able to have more energy efficient communities is good for the city of Charlotte, it's good for the state of North Carolina, and it ultimately promotes growth as well.
Okay, next question. I think a key point from Gianna's comments as well is that our goal is to reduce power consumption so the bills will go down, which customers typically like. So.
Hi, Clint Wilder with Clean Edge. Question for John. Could you be more specific about which technologies Cisco is providing here, and also where does this rank in terms of size of a smart grid initiative with your other smart grid activities?
Okay. In terms of the capability, the products will range from the ability to focus on ventilation capability, the individual devices, the monitoring. You found when we monitor, people know the information, you empower people, they cut the cost. An eco-map, which we piloted with NASA and put in cities such as San Francisco and Seoul and Amsterdam. This one we're going to do on the ground. So it combines a lot of different technologies. It's much like the internet. Instead of having 360 protocols that move electricity, that's what you've got now, and you can add a common security environment to it. We are very active in smart connected communities in every major country in the world. However, this has the potential to be the first real united front where you do 90% of the office buildings, where over 50%, in fact it's well over 50% of the emissions occur, and the ability to be a model for how public-private partnerships can really work, and then you can take it global. It also has the potential to be the example for the U.S. and how we dramatically change it. So it is our technology working unique together in a way, and if it's successful here, all of us will do well in the long run. So from our shareholders' perspective, they like it when we do this.
One other thing, there's a thumb drive in the back with the release. There's actually some screenshots of what some of the technology will look like that you can pull from as well. So,
Thank you. My name is Adal Hussain, World Liberty Television. My question is, the government, what is the government, the local, the state, the federal government, what incentives are thrown in, And also regarding developing the infrastructure, what kind of monetary funds would be needed to enhance that further? Thanks.
First of all, I think Jim and Gianna have basically described the level of private sector investment that's going into the infrastructure, and Cisco will be part of putting a lot of the infrastructure in through systems that will help us monitor. The City of Charlotte has received Recovery Act dollars through the Energy Efficiency Development Block Grant Program. We have been able to hire a sustainability manager. We've been able to go out into our community and reach out to both public and private sector folks in our community to talk about how we would structure a grant development project. We've come up with 17 different projects that we're doing, from neighborhood challenge grants to things like retrofitting our own buildings. And so some of our Recovery Act dollars will go into helping us complete this mission. But one of the things that I did want to make a point of saying is that this is a step along the way that we believe will help our city become a leader in energy delivery as well as sustainability. We want Charlotte to become the energy capital of the world, and we believe that with partnerships like Duke Energy and Cisco and others, we can innovate and help this not only Charlotte but also create replicable models that can be used across the world.
I would add one thing to what the mayor is saying that's really important, and that is in Charlotte today we have 175 energy companies ranging from startups to more mature companies like ours, and with almost 13,000 people employed. So this energy hub notion we have been working on for a while, because as y'all know, Charlotte has been a banking center for a long time and continues to be. And so we are expanding our vision for the city going forward. And the other important point in terms of the money, we're not asking the tenants or the owners of the buildings to make the investments. We are making the investments in this. I know the city will do certain things with respect to their facilities, but we're even prepared to invest within the city government facilities. And this gets back to the earlier answer to the question. We're changing our mission in the 21st century. In the 20th century is to provide universal access. In the 21st century, I believe utility companies' mission will be to make our communities the most energy efficient in the world. We're changing how we get compensated for that. And so as we put investments in the city government's facilities, in the buildings downtown, at the end of the day, we make money doing that. And the big difference is our cost of capital is so much lower than many of the businesses, so we can do this in a lower cost. But secondly, most businesses look for a 3 to 5 year payback. We're in the business historically of building power plants with a 40-year payback. And so when you have lower cost of capital with longer payback, you're able to do this at a much lower cost. And so at the end of the day, that's the real advantage to consumers and specifically this project.
Hi, I'm Michael Bosicki with Hum News. I'm interested in the applicability of this overseas. I believe Mr. Chambers mentioned that this could be brought to scale to other cities in the world. And I'm wondering, if you look at, for example, Africa, would you be bringing this to, say, the third largest city in Nigeria, where now they have 23 and a half hour blackouts per day, or a more advanced city like Johannesburg, where you're getting maybe half an hour, 1 hour blackouts a day?
So 3 quick concepts. First is it's applicable in every major city in the world. And remember, the majority of emissions come out of the cities. Second concept is the decision makers, which surprised me when I started into this several years ago, aren't the leaders of the country or the leaders of the state or the province. It's the mayors. And it can't happen without a unified approach where the community, both the citizens, the business, the public sector, work together with the key provider of the technology and the key provider of the product, the electricity. And so it is this unique combination. I think it will be the model for everywhere in the world. Now, we're involved everywhere with these type of concepts. Chongqing, which will be the largest city in the world, Chengdu, both in China, Songdo, in terms of just outside of Korea, Amsterdam. This is the first time you've had this group come together. And it's very exciting in terms of the role model that it can be for this country and this world, and take job creation not out of the equation, but actually add to it. Take the concern, can you really get the savings out, but actually be the example for the rest of the world. And let me expand on Jim's comments. A lot of what the cost of my network is, or Jim's network, is the capital structure. About 40% of your cost, as a rule, are based on peak loads. So you can reduce your cost of your structure by almost 40% by cutting those peak loads. Share that savings with the citizens, be they the private or the public sector or the individual. So it is the combination of these three coming together that really pulls it, and it's why it's so unique. Envision Charlotte could be the model that we'll be talking about in Europe, that we'll be talking about across this country, and in Asia as the model. But it doesn't matter if you're in Kenya, it doesn't matter if you're in any of the Middle East world, Russia, etc. This is one of the hottest topics going on, but this is the first time this community's come together for a united front. That's what we're in.
Okay. Back.
Thank you. Chip Cummins, R-Day, Aspen, Colorado. A question for Jim Rogers. This is a model that I appreciate is going global, and that's a wonderful thing. But back to the United States with the biggest carbon footprint and the fact that we were unable to get a cap and trade through. Do you see this as a model that other utilities in the country will adopt, making partnerships with cities and also with Cisco and companies like that? How replicable is this in the United States?
That's a podium response here.
Yeah, everybody else is getting up, and I'm saying, maybe I'm too old, but my point, I think that's such a great question. And I've been an advocate and been so involved in trying to pass legislation in Congress, and we've hit a wall. And I've come to believe now that it's got to be a grassroots effort. It's got to be efforts like Envision Charlotte. I mean, buildings have 40% of the emissions of CO2 in this country. And so to the extent we can reduce usage in major buildings, that is really a critical part. It's got to be these kind of partnerships, as John and the mayor have talked about, coming together to get this done. But I call this a grassroots action. I call this coming together in a way to make it happen and not wait for the federal government to act. And at the end of the day, it's these kind of things that will ultimately embolden our leaders in Congress to take the necessary action, because they'll see we can produce real results, and we're doing it even without the legislation. I still believe we need the legislation and a price on carbon and a cap on emissions. I still think that is necessary in the long term. But in the immediate term, it's technologies like John is developing and deploying. That's where I'm putting my money on, because at the end of the day, it's a combination of the technologies, the changing of the regulatory paradigm within the states, and a number of states are moving in that direction, so that we are incented to invest in our customers and in energy efficiency. It is working with enlightened city governments, our state governments, to really do this either within a city or across a state. So I'm, having hit the wall in Washington, I'm saying, let's go to work. Let's get the technologies. Let's drive the costs down. Let's bring wind costs down, solar costs down. Let's bring technologies associated with energy efficiency down. Let's deploy them. Let's build these type of partnerships. And even in Washington, in the last debate, I think the most meaningful experience that I've ever had in my career, and I think most effective in Washington, is the formation of US CAP, which was a combination of NGOs, major corporations who came together and over a year and a half kind of argued the issues, fought it out behind closed doors, became, not in a partisan way, but we developed relationships. We might disagree, but we were never disagreeable in our manner. As a consequence, we produced a blueprint that really facilitated, as Chairman Waxman said, the passage of the Waxman-Markey bill in the House. And so I believe to get things done today in America, it's got to be done at the grassroots level, and it's got to involve NGOs and foundations and local governments and corporations all coming together to find a way forward and to develop examples, as this Envision Charlotte will be an example for the rest of the country, we hope, as well as for the rest of the world. Thank you.
Let's go in the back.
Sue Ann Taylor with Choosing Green TV and Comcast. My question for Mr. Rogers also is, what is the reaction of your peers, your colleagues on this? Is this something that is being taken up, or they're thinking that this is too far outside of the box?
Well, I've had the good fortune of being a CEO in this industry for almost 22 years. And my goal line is not to get the vote or from my colleagues in the industry. My goal line has always been to be focused on what the right answer is for my customers. And what I believe we're doing here is the right thing for our customers. And it's been hard to even convince regulators at the state level to change the paradigm, to recognize that we should make as much money investing in energy efficiency as we do investing in a coal plant or a nuclear plant. So that's been a pretty tough battle at the state level. But I'm not in a popularity contest with respect to the rest of the CEOs in the industry. However, I would say that many of them see, and when I was chairman of EEI a number of years ago, I made energy efficiency one of the issues that I really worked on, because I believe that that is, anytime I take a job as a chairman of an industry association, I want a legacy. And the legacy I tried to leave was a commitment to energy efficiency among all the CEOs in this country. And as a consequence of that, I think you've seen, not as a direct consequence, many utilities and much of the leadership start to turn in that direction and really get engaged in it. Some are more engaged than others. But the reality is, I see our industry beginning to realize that the mission that got us to where we are today is done, and now we have to have a new mission for the 21st century, and we're uniquely qualified to provide the solutions that are so critical as we make this transition to a low-carbon world.
You know, if I could just add a quick comment. What you see is when one company in an industry or one city in a country does something and very successful. In today's time on our panel, we talked about speed. If we're successful in Charlotte, make no mistake about it, it will be replicated with Florida Power and Light, Southern Cal Edison, it will be automatic. And many people in America, and you can understand their concern, they're saying, can you really make the savings for me? Can you really reduce emissions? Can you do this and actually generate jobs, which are very fair questions. So rather than talk about it theoretically, let's go show what we can do. And if we're successful, it will get replicated faster than you might realize. That's the large part of the reason we're here, because we'll be very successful around the world if we're the role model.
I want to add something to what John just said. We don't have time to wait. I mean, if you really think about it, we're scrambling around waiting for something to happen at the federal level. We don't have time to wait. And as I reach out to my colleagues in the U.S. Conference of Mayors and other parts of the country, my advice is go to your energy provider. You know, instead of deadlocking over regulation, try to figure out where you can find partnerships to make things happen so we can move the ball forward. That's what's happening in Charlotte. And I think that is one of the real secrets to the success that this program will make. I don't, you know, almost regardless of what happens here, and I think it'll be marvelously successful, the real benefit is that we have other collaborations we haven't even started talking about that are now possible.
Right here.
Hi, I'm Amanda from World Changing. I'm based out of Seattle, and the Seattle City Council has declared a goal of carbon neutrality by 2030. And it was good to hear that the cities, you recognize that cities are leading the way. And I was just wondering if this initiative is part of any larger program in the city of Charlotte for other carbon reduction goals.
Actually, it is part of a much larger set of initiatives. When I took office back in December, I signed the U.S. Conference of Mayors Climate Change Agreement, which, as you know, calls for reducing the carbon footprint of our city. And this is part of the continuum of work that we're continuing to do. I mentioned the Energy Development Block Grant Funds and the things that we're doing there, and it really ranges the gamut. We are doing everything from going out to the 200 neighborhoods in our city and saying, dream up a sustainability plan for your neighborhood, and we'll have a race to the top type competition, in the best 5 to 7 of those proposals will actually get funded. These are the types of things, you know, in other words, we're not just trying to do the innovation ourselves within the 4 walls of city government. We're actually going out into the community and letting the community innovate. And this is another example of that. I think in this kind of environment, you have to be entrepreneurial. You have to realize that government may be an enabler, but it won't be the problem solver in every situation. And so we want to be in a position where we're helping to enable the innovation, whether it's a neighborhood or whether it's a company like Duke Energy and Cisco.
To add to that a little bit, there's one more piece to Envision Charlotte. The idea behind Envision Charlotte is that we launch with this incredible initiative, but the vision for this effort is that we create the most sustainable urban core in the nation, and that this be one initiative and that it creates a communication network among all these monitors throughout all the buildings in our downtown, and hopefully a large one also at the square, but that we celebrate all the initiatives and all the efforts that our major corporations and our government are doing towards achieving that goal of being the most environmentally sustainable urban core in the nation.
Okay, we'll go to the next one. I'm sorry.
Hello, I'm Randolph Horner. As a North Carolinian now living in the Hudson Valley, I'm very, very proud of this initiative. I would like to note a couple of things. We have a few minutes left. Mr. Rogers, during the time that Duke Energy has been working with the North Carolina Utility Commission to deploy distributed generation, PV on rooftop and so forth, our United States photovoltaic industry has been collapsing. And Mr. Chambers, we know about the vast range of sustainability initiatives that you've undertaken. When you mentioned the fact that every commitment made to CGI has been exceeded, I'd like the panel, including His Honor the Mayor and the Center City Partnership, to comment on the fact that if we add to this smart grid PV-enabled generation, as a North Carolinian, I know quite well this very compact Center City looks south over an expanse of land where rooftop mounting on parking structures, ground mounts at small utility scale could play into the vision that Duke has and that Cisco sees worldwide. So I would just like to ask the principals to comment on whether or not there might be a companion effort. And let me offer the fact that notwithstanding the fact that Charlotte wants to rebrand itself or brand itself as an energy capital, we do see a collapse of PV manufacturing across the entire United States, and this initiative might help reestablish that. I'd love to exchange views at a later time.
Okey doke. Well, thank you for that. Just one more question. We'll finish up where we started. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask you, because it's so fascinating what you're bringing up. Is there a geographical size or a population size? Are there parameters on either end? So I'm thinking New York City, Mayor Bloomberg has really been pushing for a green city. Can it happen even here in New York City? Can it happen in a town the size of North Hempstead, which you don't know, but it's right across the border, or as wide a place as Long Island, which is quite an expansive?
If you think about the internet, it was started with a very simple principle, and yet it changed productivity, it changed an equalization in the world, and as you begin to put video on it and electricity on it, you're going to, I think, open up a whole new section of capabilities. Whether it's the capabilities to capture energy in many ways and distribute it in our homes and otherwise, it has that exact same capability. Whether it's the ability for us as consumers, if we as a city, be it New York or wherever, can't say that we'll pay a premium for cleaner energy as a city, but if you could do that as an individual business, or you could do it as an individual person and you knew what the costs were and you could try it and take a step at a time, which is very doable in this, I think it's going to be applicable completely around the world. We started with a small program in Jordan with a concept on education almost 10 years ago. And we did it because it was the right social thing to do, much like Jim and I are united today. At that time, the King of Jordan said, "John, you'll make a lot of money in Jordan if you do this." I said, "Your Majesty, I will never make any money in Jordan and probably not in the Middle East." 10 years later, we went from less than $70 billion in sales to $1 billion. At a time, our company went from 19 to 40 billion. So when you do what is right for society, there's often also a capability underneath of it that expands far beyond what your imagination can comprehend today. But your problem is you've got to get the example. And it can't be a city moving without a utility player who's really serious about putting the power behind it, without a government that is united on being able to do it, without a community that comes together with planners that are able to speak as one group. So there is no resistance here. Now, if you can do it once, then others will watch. Then you'll do it a second time, and then you really begin to scale it. And then I think there's no city too big or city too small or home too big or home too small to be able to do this.
Tom, if I may add one point to the comment from the man that grew up in North Carolina. One of the things that I believe is really important, and one of the reasons we stepped out and did what we call a solar on the rooftop program, where we took $50 million and we went out and put solar on the rooftop of our customers. And basically, we looked at their rooftop as a power plant site. We gave them a payment. We made the investment in the solar panels. We installed them. We're operating them. But we're learning a lot from that in terms of how to use an intermittent source that's distributed through our system. And we believe that's how our grid will evolve, especially as battery technology is deployed and other distributed generation types. It will be complementary to central station, but it will be an important part of what the grid looks like over the next 10 to 20 years. And I actually think your suggestion, because you are right, it's a south-facing city, and there are a lot of opportunities with parking lots and other areas that maybe I ought to take your suggestion and find a way to get permission from our state commission to make an additional investment in the city in solar panels so that we can help create the demand to create the supply chain in the United States. And that supply chain is where the jobs come from, and that's what leads to our ability to rebuild our middle class, which is in need of being rebuilt because we've lost so much manufacturing over the last 20 years in this country. But great comment. I'm going to take your advice, and I'm going to follow through on it. Thank you.
And Mr. Rogers, everybody will see it from I-85, right? Looking at the magnificent center city, in the foreground would be these roof mounts on parking structures and so forth. So when you talk about brand and civic identity, it's something that hundreds of thousands of motorists will see just riding by.
Thank you.
Actually, I'll also add that you'll also see them at our airport. We are actually putting a solar farm out at our airport. So the million plus people that come through our airport every year will see that type of energy being drawn, and it's going to go right into the airport.
Okay, well, I think we need to tie it up now, but thank you so much for coming, and thanks CGI. One thing, these thumb drives are in the back. We have a website active, envisioncharlotte.com, and thanks for coming.
Hello, how are you doing? You're going to call me John, Mr. Madad.